guys, how's it going? It's Al. Monday Night Football on DraftKings Showdown is here for week 10. We have a great matchup between the Washington Commanders visiting the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, it's not really a great matchup because the Eagles are favored by 11 in this one and could completely dominate the Commanders, but it is an interesting showdown because of all the different pieces and parts and great offensive players that Philly has. And then if Washington is playing from behind, we can kind of pick and choose our ways back, whether you're building a 4-2 or a 5-1, or if you think that Washington's going to surprise and possibly compete and or win this game, you can build it the other way to get really contrarian. So thank you guys for being here. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, leave me a reply down below, and let's go.
He's a legend.
Take a quick look over at Underdog Fantasy. If you do not already have an account over at Underdog, you can get up to $100 first deposit bonus if you use that promo code ALSMIZZLE. That's all one word, ALSMIZZLE. You can use that $100 on something like a pick'em like they have right here. So we got to pick something from both teams. Let's go over Curtis Samuel there on receiving yards. Let's go over 4 receptions on Dallas Goedert. I'll play that for $50, 2 to win 3x. Submit, confirm, and we are off. Go check out everything that they have over on Underdog Fantasy. They do a great job with pick'em and best ball and everything else. Taking a look at this slate, we'll start with the captains. We'll move to a few of the kind of dart throw plays later. We'll talk a lot about correlation and how we're going to do things. And then we'll take a look over at the Fantasy Labs lineup builder. So obviously the most optimal captain, the guy that everybody is going to play at captain, is going to be Jalen Hurts. Like, he is probably going to be the highest played captain on the slate. And then there's one extremely popular like play off of him. So starting with Jalen Hurts, if you're going to use him as your captain, I would suggest using him with multiple receivers, as his really big games do come with multiple touchdowns. And if that happens, you get all those guys that come along with it. You don't have to, like, you could limit it to like, you could say build a rule of at least 1 instead of at least 2 of his past game compatriots, right? That correlate with him really well, because kind of like Justin Fields, they're not throwing the ball anymore because they don't have to, because they're playing from ahead by so much that they end up deflating the ball in the second half and running the football a whole lot. So earlier in the season, they were throwing it 32, 35 times, 36 times. Now they're getting into situations where they're running away from teams. This Philadelphia defense is extremely dominant. Their offensive line also extremely dominant. Miles Sanders taking on a heavy dose in the run game, but not really catching a lot of passes. Terrible for DraftKings scoring, but really, really great in terms of, like, just getting you a bunch of carries and running the football in in a IRL NFL sort of way. Doesn't always translate to fantasy if he doesn't score touchdowns, but like, they run the ball like 35, 40 times a game, and as efficient as Jalen Hurts has been, 2 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns each of the last 3 games, with a passer rating of 107.8 on the season. He's been over 104 each of the last 3 games after kind of a 2-game inefficient stretch, right, where he didn't throw for any touchdowns. But like, he's going to be your optimal captain. If you're playing single entry, you're going to have to fight through a ton of people that are using him. If you're playing mass multi-entry, you can build other lineups off of him. That group with Jalen Hurts is going to contain basically all of his pass catchers. Not going to include Miles Sanders in that group. We'll include Smith and Goddard. I'll get to them in just a minute. I am also going to include the kicker with them, and then probably some quiz walk. Anybody that you think is viable to catch any touchdown passes from him goes into that group, and then a bring back group considering all of the offensive players on the other side from Washington. The one away play is AJ Brown. We've seen him have absolute blow up games, touchdowns in each of the last 3, with that 3 touchdown, 156-yard explosion back in week 8. So you know that he can break a slate and be the optimal captain, because you get a little bit of savings coming down to 15.9 off of the 18.3 when you roster Jalen Hurts at the captain spot. So it allows you to get maybe one more player or improve one more player without having to full punt somebody. If I am using AJ Brown as my captain spot, I'm surely going to lock Jalen Hurts into all of those lineups that have AJ Brown. If he has a big game, Jalen Hurts is going to be viable in that lineup more likely than not. Like, think of it like a probability graph of, like, when you see this team is 90% probable to win the game. They don't always win that game, right? There's things that can happen. Balls can bounce really weird ways. Kind of like when Minnesota failed on 4th down from the 2-inch line. And then Buffalo fumbled. They had this quarterback sneak the ball forward and they fumbled. Minnesota got the ball back. So like there's always weird things that can happen. But the high probability route is if A.J. Brown is the optimal captain at the end of the night, that Jalen Hurts probably going to be in that lineup. Now, I mentioned Miles Sanders. Everything else at captain is going to be a contrarian play. Those are the two places that everybody's going to go. Miles Sanders can steal it, though. One, you get a massive discount from Jalen Hurts to Miles Sanders. You get a pretty solid discount, like $1,200 if you use Miles Sanders as your captain over A.J. Brown. He has not had a big game since week 4 where he ran for 134 and 2 touchdowns. That was in the absence of Boston Scott and everybody else. They're kind of keeping him under 20 touches, and he has 1 target the last 3 weeks. They just don't utilize him all that much in the pass game. It's not how they run their offense, and Miles Sanders has not been very efficient the last 2 seasons when he's caught the ball out of the backfield. So, like, while we believe that he should be a good passing back or a pass-catching back, he just isn't that. He makes for a very nice contrarian play at captain this evening, if that is something that you wanted to do. And then the difference between Smith and Goddard. Smith has big game potential, as we saw back in week 3 against these same Washington Commanders, right? Where he had an amazing game, 8 catches on 12 targets for 1 touchdown in that game, 33.9 DraftKings points. No other game this year has he gotten above 20. And in fact, if you look off of Devontae Smith, apologies, to Dallas Goedert, same amount of targets, but Goddard has more yards, which is really weird for a tight end versus a Heisman winning wide receiver who is very, very good. It's just the way that they utilize both of them. Goddard's catching the ball more in space. Smith is being asked to catch more contested balls, even though he probably shouldn't have to, considering that he is one of the better players in the league in terms of getting separation. They're not throwing him the ball or scheming him the ball into areas where he's open. It's always a high point catch, a jump and catch, a sideline catch, something where he is not catching the ball on the run, as opposed to the way that they're feeding the ball to A.J. Brown, the way that they're feeding the ball to Dallas Goedert. I do think that Smith has touchdown potential. We know that he has multiple touchdown potential because we've seen that from him in the past, but we have not seen that from him this year. So if I was going to play one of these two at captain, I would lean towards Goddard. I'm still going to have some Smith across 150, but I think that more people are going to go for Smith than Goddard, and I would personally go for Goddard over Smith. We'll see if it actually shakes out that way. Looking at the other side, first, okay, before I get to the other side, I know that people are going to want to play the Eagles defense. 9 sacks the last time they played. Double-digit fantasy points 4 weeks this year. Highly variant play. If you want to do it, feel free. Go for it. It's against the math. It's not the right play. But if you believe that Heineke, who has not been an efficient quarterback, Heineke is somebody you guys have heard from me a lot, that most quarterbacks are fine. A few quarterbacks are like elite, the Mahomes, the Allens. Like 20 quarterbacks, though, in the league fall into the category of like they're fine and they just need really good pass catchers or plus a good scheme around them, and they'll be, they can win ball games, they can put up really good stats. Heineke is in that bad category. He's not a good quarterback. He's serviceable. He's great for us in fantasy because he just kind of chucks it. He's got some ability with his legs. But this is a really rough matchup for somebody like him who turns the ball over all the time. A turnover in all 3 games since taking over for Wentz this year. And it's not a spot where I think that he's a viable captain, like at all. And he's part of the reason why the Eagles defense is going to be something that is looked at because of how turnover prone he has been in all the games that he has started in his career, both last year and this year. Great story. I wish him all the best. Not somebody that I'm going to be playing in captain pretty much at all, but somebody that he has turned back on, he has unlocked, is Terry McLaurin. In the 3 games that Heineke has started, 8, 8, and 9 targets for Terry McLaurin. Finally. He is somebody, even though it's a terrible matchup, right? Slay and Bradbury on the outside have done a tremendous job at shutting down basically everybody that they face this year. Terry McLaurin has the ability to get loose against anyone. So while I'm not saying he's a core captain play, I'm saying he's somebody who can get loose from time to time. And the only other play, this is like a super fringe captain play, but I'm probably not going to make it myself, is Curtis Samuel. Not a lot of really upside here. The targets that he gets are kind of nice, right? He gets 4, 4, 8, 5, 8. Like, it's not the usage that he was getting early in the season when he was getting like double-digit targets, averaging like 10 a week the first 3 weeks. They've turned him into like a very, very, very poor, like a Skid Row Deebo Samuel, where he's running the ball 4 or 5 times a game. They're giving him like 4 targets from last year, not like Deebo on potential, how the 49ers were using Deebo last year, and then like a really broken down version of that, like a jalopy version of that. He's got a good floor. I believe that he is somebody that you're going to want to have a good amount of in the flex, but I don't want to have him in captain. But multiple touchdown games are something that could happen, and because he's so cheap, it allowed you to get that 1 extra star on the other side if you wanted to go with like a 4-2 or a 5-1 with Curtis Samuel. I don't feel that you need to, if Curtis Samuel is going to be your captain, to tie the quarterback to him, but that's the way my rules are made. So let's take a look over at how these breakdowns are, right, in terms of target market share. AJ Brown, 29.8% of the target market share. Devontae Smith, 23, just south of that, 22.8. Dallas Goedert at 22.4. As I was mentioning before, he has more yards on less targets. He does have more completions than does Devontae Smith on less targets, like 1 less target, but equal touchdowns for both of them. So it's basically the AJ Brown show when they throw it. On the other side, now these are split between the games that had Carson Wentz and the games that had Heineke, but it's Curtis Samuel leading the way, Terry McLaurin, who has come on very strong recently, and then it's just like a whole bunch of cast characters. Watch out for who is going to be active in the Washington backfield. Robinson is come along, but it's not a great thing. Logan Thomas is leading Bates, but Bates has been taking snaps away from him in the last 2-3 weeks and getting more routes run than him the last 2-3 weeks. So I believe that it is Bates over Thomas now. And Jahan Dotson is back finally from a long-term injury, 5 weeks that he's been out. If you got a couple of seconds, if you've benefited from the content, if you just like the content, or if you just wanted to say thank you, go over to No Kid Hungry, go to smizzle.tv/charity. Every donation that you make through our charity link is 100% tax deductible. We are trying to raise $100,000 on the season. That's combined. $50,000 from our community, that's you. And I will match $10,000. Every $10,000 the community raises up to $50,000. So the next match from me comes at the $50,000 mark. When this ticker down below reaches 50K, I will add another 10K myself, bringing us to closer to that 100K goal. No Kid Hungry is providing school breakfast and lunches, as well as at-home care to food insecure kids all across America. So take a couple of seconds. I know you got a couple of bucks, because if you're watching daily fantasy videos and you're putting money up to play daily fantasy and play pick'ems, you got a couple of bucks that you could throw in. Every single dollar helps. So $1, $5, $20. If you got $100 or more, everything helps get us towards that goal to help, hungry kids all across America. So thank you for that. Let's go over to the Fantasy Labs lineup builder and take a look at what we have over here. I don't allow the kicker or defense. If you wanted to allow the defense in this one, that's totally fine with me. Taking a look at the positional rules, pair your captain quarterback with at least 2 of the wide receiver, tight end, or kicker from their team. If you wanted to alter this for Philly, 1 for Philly and 1 for Washington, that's just fine if that's how you wanted to play it. Pair the captain quarterback with at least 1 skill position player from the other side. Pair the wide receiver and captain with their quarterback. Pair the tight end with their quarterback as well. And limit to at most 1 defense and kicker from the same game. If you wanted to tweak this to 2, tweak it to 2. You could do that also if you wanted to do that. And then the rule to try and get a little bit more differentiation, at least 1 player that plays running back, wide receiver, or tight end that is less than 20% on projected ownership. We'll click the generate button, and then you've got to take a lot of time manicuring your lineups to make them look the way that you want them to look, because it's not as easy as going to a lineup builder, clicking generate, and thinking that there's no faster way to flush money down the toilet than just, well, I got Fantasy Labs, I'm going to click generate, or I'm going to copy these lineups off of Al's screen that he made a vanilla run on lineups, and that's going to be the lineup I play. Bad decision. It's going to take you a lot of time to get the allocations and the combinations that you're looking for. So if you wanted to use the lineup builder and their great projections over at fantasylabs.com, go to smizzle.tv/labs. If you get the 8-month all sport membership, you get NFL, college football, NBA, golf, NHL, NASCAR. It's the best deal that they have over there, and it'll take you all the way up to the beginning of next football season if you want just the NFL only deal at that point. So thank you guys for watching. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.